the only time I did get nervous, I don't know if you've got any viewpoint on this, Andy, is I went up once in the morning and I had a mega hangover. We'd been caning it at a barbecue the night before. And I realised when I got in the door, I wasn't my usual just throw yourself out and do a load of somersaults and don't even think about it. I was really, I was feeling nervous. Is that anything that, is that sort of well known in skydiving?
It is, and with skydiving in the early stages, when you haven't got many jumps, one, if you leave gaps between jumps, you still get the nerves. It's when you do sort of, a couple of hundred jumps, that side goes. But what you probably notice is your thought process was slowed down. And that's what made you more nervous, because of the alcohol side. Certainly back in the old days, alcohol and skydiving seemed to go hand in hand. So you did a day's skydiving, then you did a hardcore drinking session and started again the next morning. But times have changed. We don't see that so much nowadays. When people finish jumping, they tend to go home. Don't see the hardcore drinking days as we did back in the 70s.
Yeah, I remember. I have you ever jumped at Sebastian in Florida?
I have actually, about 2 years ago, doing the canopy formations. Back in the Marines days, we all did the single column stack, but now they do the pyramid. So I wanted to gain some experience in the pyramid stuff, what we call the diamond formations. So my oldest son was going out there, so I tagged along the trip. And it was fantastic, just to experience doing large formations, changed my thought process, what it was like.
Wow. I've just got up on the screen I'm guessing it's your Royal Marines stack. You can't see the colour of the chutes in this black and white picture, but
it's a cracking shot because it's side profile.
Yeah,
so you see all the individuals.
Who's the guy that's separate? Is that a cameraman or is that a guy just attempting to join the stack?
Cameraman. We had 3 of them to film in different angles.
Yeah, and I was trying to work out how you did it time-wise, and then of course I'm forgetting that you hop and pop basically, don't you? You pull your chute as soon as you're out the door, so you get so much more time in the air.
We do, and one of the things we learned was when everyone exits the aircraft at the same time, the guys were docking on the bottom of the stack because they spent so much time trying to make the parachutes dive faster, using muscle strength to pull the risers down. By the time it's their turn, they ran out of strength. So what we did in 85, the first attempt at the world record, we staggered the aircraft. So we had one aircraft fly at 15,000 feet. The next aircraft came at 12,000 feet. And the last one came at 10,000 feet.
Wow.
So when the bottom guys left the aircraft, you actually free falling past the stack, then throwing the parachute out, opening just underneath it, waiting for your turn, sliding in and making your approach. And that was far more successful.
What a clever idea.
Yeah, and then I made my way to a compound where we regrouped. And as I sat there and looked around, I noticed one person was missing, my brother. I thought, that's bad, that's very, very bad. So I went up to Romanian. I don't speak Pashto, but I'm trying to use sign language indicating there's 2 of us. Where's the other one? And he called a guy over, asked a question in Pashto, and this guy looked at me, shook his head, and I was like, man, I really want to see that. What am I going to explain to Mum on this one? I said to him, look, need to go back. I need to see. And full credit to the guy. He actually called another guy over and he was taking me back to where all the hell broke loose to find out what the score was. And as we got to that bend, out from this cornfield popped my brother. I said, where the hell have you been? He said, I got cut off. So I was on the other side. There's so much rounds coming in, I couldn't get back. So I had to go through the cornfield. But then what I noticed when I was going through the cornfield, I was causing the corn to move. So the Russians were putting more fire into the cornfield. So he was actually crawling through. When we got back to the compound, we sat there, my pupils were like saucers, huge. I looked at my brother and I said, Ken, we nearly got wasted there. And he just looked at me and said, Andrew, you say that. But if you looked at World War II, the amount of rounds that got fired, the amount of people that got hit, the odds are in your favour. And I looked at you, I said, are you having a laugh? Ken, 5 minutes ago, I did not think the odds were in my favour. Yeah. But yeah, Ken kind of got used to it. But for me, massive shock. And I was just like, I wanted an adventure, but I wasn't expecting that,
I bet. And I just want to go back because we didn't. I'm just going to go back to the Royal Marines Freefall team because we didn't really cover that as much as I would have liked, Andy. I almost glossed over it then. Because back in the day, it was a big thing in the Corps, wasn't it? I remember you used to have the bumper stickers, Royal Marines, Freefall Royal Marines and that kind of stuff.
And the old jump marine stickers, the zapping everywhere.
Yes, that's right. And of course, I think it goes without saying there's obviously a bit of rivalry there with the Red Devils, who were the Army's freefall display team. I'm guessing mostly manned by the parachute regiment, was it?
The Red Devils was Paris. The one exception was Jackie Smith, who was in the Army, and they allowed her to join the team. And she was an exceptional jumper, became a world champion.
Yeah, she was the only female in their team. Was that right?
Correct. The very first woman to join the military display team, parachute team.
Wow, a great bit of history. And what was the qualifications then to get into the Royal Marines team? What did you have to be interested in skydiving? Did you have to have done a paracourse or something, or was it just you put your name forward?
Well, it initially started when they looked towards forming an official team. They picked people who were already qualified. And there wasn't that many, it was only like a handful of us. Now, I joined the team in like October 78. And I joined with a guy called Andy Grice. And the reason I managed to go straight to the team, there was only Andy and myself that were qualified in the Marines to go straight into the display team. And when I joined the team, I had two brothers on the display team, Pete and Ken. And the one thing I learned was canopy relative wear was fairly new, and no other display team was doing it. And what the older guys from me, what they decided was that was going to be their display, doing the canopy stacking, to make them different to the other teams. So you did your normal freefall stuff, open parachutes, then linked up, and you're taking the canopy stacking into the arena, which again is additional risk. So when I joined the team, the first thing I had when I opened a parachute was my brother shouting me, "Stay there." And I watched him come across, grabbed hold of my parachute, and I thought, "What are you doing?" When we landed, he said, "Andrew, this is what makes the Royal Marines parachute display team different to anyone else. We do canopy stacking. Get used to it." And at my stage at that time, I was still thinking the parachute was fragile, But it took me from being a below average jumper to someone who's now recognized and respected amongst all the other skydivers, because we were the Royal Marines parachute display team. And my first training camp was in Pope Valley in California, and we got the British record, 6 stacked. And that kind of started this whole thing about going for records. When we look at the world record, it just came to discussion when we talked about guys on the team. Because after Andy and myself, the Marines realised you had to start training people up. So when people applied for the team, had the interview and got selected, they spent a year at parachuting school building up their jumps. And after a year, they then joined the team. So we just sat there counting how many people of the years had been on the display team. And we realised, if you count the ex-Marines as well, we've got enough people to go for the world record. So Rod Boswell organised the whole thing, and full respect to him for organising it all. We contacted Mick Upton, who had left the Corps 10 years previously, hadn't jumped since. We're like, "Mick, it's just like riding a bicycle." With a guy in America who flew back. So 1985 was our first attempt at the world record with enough people to go for it, which at the time, the world record was held by the Americans at 23. What we achieved in 85 was we managed to equal the world record, but we did get the night world record of 22 at night. But what was frustrating with the big stacks, the bigger they get, the more snaky they get. So when you get like a turbulence hitting the stack, it's like a whip. It ricochets up, comes back down, then the bottom guys just get exploded. So we kept getting like 21, 22. And if you think at the time, the biggest stacks in the world was 123, 122, 121. The time we finished, we did 123, 12 22s, 12 21s, and we just thought, we were so close that we made the decision to come back in 86 and to try again. And the very first jump, we equaled the world record again. Our issue was constantly the clouds. Every time we got lower down, we got near a cloud, it created the turbulence. I can remember when we finally got it, I was totally unaware. Because when the stack gets bigger, it gets heavier. So when you're in the stack, it feels like your legs are being pulled out, your arms are being pulled out. And I actually took a couple of twists in the lines to be able to hold on. Because I just thought, if I dropped 16 Marines, they would not be impressed. So I cheated and took a grip of the lines, took a twist. And when we broke off the stack, I had no strength for landing to flare the parachute. My arms were just spent. And I remember just bouncing on the ground, picking myself up, walking back, thinking, going, I'm going to have to do that again. And someone came out to me with a big smile and said, "You've done it." I said, "Done what?" He said, "You just got the world record." I was like, "Oh, thank goodness for that. Let's go for a team."
Oh, brilliant. Was it sort of a feeling of kudos to be in the team? Did it make you a hit with the women or anything like that, or just amongst your fellow bootnecks?
I think the biggest thing for us was the respect from other skydivers. We built this reputation. We were, without doubt, at the time, the best display team in the country. No one could compete with us. And even the Red Devils respected us for it. I think that meant more to us. As for the women, we're too busy skydiving. We're more interested in skydiving. What we did have was other members of the display team, as and the Arnold Combat team, and various other people kept pinching our skydiving T-shirts, and in the evening going around as the Freefall team.
Brilliant. And Andy, why did remembering how legendary, I mean, you guys were like on Blue Peter, so this children's TV program, you were on the news, you were almost like constantly in the media and stuff. It was a big old guy. I almost used the word propaganda tool then, but it was a big recruiting tool, wasn't it? Why did it end?
Cutbacks. Pretty all it was. The Marines had to find areas that had cut back on money, and they chose the Freefall team. For us, we couldn't understand it. Just for the PR side, what we did. But the same thing happened with Royal Marines motorbike display team. When they were operating, they were best in the country, and they got axed. And hence the Army white helmets became like the only display team around on the motorbikes. It's a real shame. Personally, I think it was a mistake. But maybe that's because I'm too much orientated on the parachuting side. I don't know.
Yes, of course. It's funny when you think the price of one of the modern day rockets that they fire in abundance in whether it's Afghanistan or somewhere, you could probably fund that team for the whole year.
It's just one of those things. I mean, you mentioned earlier about San Sebastian in America.
Yes.
When I went on that trip, I was talking to the other hardcore counter-reservoir guys, the Americans, and they heard I was one of the Marines on the big stack. They were in awe. Because that was 1986. That world record has never been beaten. And the Americans actually said to me, that's one of the world records we tried to get back, but we've just not been able to beat it. So it still carries a lot of respect. Yes,
I'm just 1 second while we're on the subject, Andy. I'm just going to see if I can get my Sebastian. Right, 1 second. I've got to try and do this without any volume. Let's have a look. I can't put the volume on because we'll get hit for copyright, but I'm just going to play our friends at home. This is me, folks, at Sebastian. This is in the preparation area where you go and you either pack your chute yourself, or if you don't know how, you pay somebody to do it. That's it. Then you walk to the plane. You mind the propellers or the props. My friend Crow flew the plane, and these guys just get absolutely mental at it. They get so precise at just getting up as quick as they can, and then they just put the plane in almost into like a spin to get back down to the airfield to pick up another bunch of skydivers as quick as they can. They know how to feather the propellers to get the best out of the to really make the plane perform. This is us going up over the beautiful Florida Sea. When I used to fly over the sea, you could see sharks swimming in the water, sometimes near the bathing beaches. There we are. Sorry there's no volume, folks. It's just we'll get hit for copyright because the tracks, they don't care what track they put on. They don't care at the Skydive Centre if they're breaking copyright. They just want to sell you a video. So he's saying to me now, one of the guys in the plane, "How you feeling, Chris?" So I'm shitting myself like I always do. It was a lie. I never did, except that time when I had the hangover. This man here, my little boy, always says, "Is that you, Dad?" I say, "No, that's Mr. Boring. He's gone for the traditional exit." Daddy comes out. 3, 4. It does 6 somersaults. This is the delta tracking that Andy and I were talking about. Everything cool in the USA is called delta, so like delta tracking, delta force. Just gonna backflip. Then you make this movement to signal to skydivers above you. You're going to pull your chute. My skydive is not pretty, by the way, folks. The harder you try and do something, the more out of control you go. There's probably some sort of lesson there. But it's nice to do a standy uppy when you land.